Hollywood loved beauty, but it feared power at 91. Sophia Loren finally spoke about the women Hollywood never knew how to control. They weren't feared for scandals. They weren't feared for controversy. According to Sophia Loren, these women were feared because they refused to obey. They didn't ask permission. They didn't stay quiet. And Hollywood never forgot it. These are the 6 women Sophia Loren believed Hollywood truly feared. Bette Davis, the woman Hollywood couldn't discipline. Bette Davis wasn't feared because she had a sharp tongue or a difficult reputation. She was feared because she possessed something far more dangerous than a temper, an absolute refusal to be obedient. In the golden age of Hollywood, when studios held ironclad contracts that controlled every aspect of an actress's life, from the roles she played to the men she dated, from her wardrobe to her public statements, Bette Davis did the unthinkable. She said no. She challenged her contracts in court. She walked away from roles that insulted her intelligence. She demanded better material, better directors, better treatment. She openly criticized the very system that had made her a star, refusing to play the grateful starlet who owed everything to powerful men in suits. Davis didn't soften her words to remain likable. She didn't hide her ambition behind false modesty to appear agreeable. She was unapologetically determined to be seen as an artist, not a product. And that terrified the Hollywood executives, who had built an empire on the compliant silence of beautiful women. Sophia Loren later reflected that women, like Bette Davis, fundamentally changed the balance of power in Hollywood. Not quietly, not politely, but forcefully and unapologetically. Davis proved that talent could be weaponized against the very system that tried to exploit it. She showed that an actress could survive on, even thrive without submission. When the studios finally realized they couldn't intimidate Bette Davis, they stopped trying to mold her into something she wasn't. They learned to work around her, to negotiate with her, to respect her boundaries, but they never forgot the lesson she taught them. Hollywood didn't fear Bette Davis's temper. It feared her refusal to submit. It feared the precedent she set, because if one woman could break free, others might follow. Katharine Hepburn, independence as a threat. Katharine Hepburn frightened Hollywood in a quieter, more unsettling way than Bette Davis. She didn't stage public battles or deliver fiery speeches against the studio system. Instead, she did something far more subversive. She simply ignored the rules altogether. She acted as though Hollywood's expectations didn't apply to Heron somehow. Miraculously, they didn't, at a time when actresses were expected to perform femininity both on screen and off, when they were supposed to be soft, decorative, available, and grateful. Hepburn dismantled the entire concept. She wore trousers when women weren't supposed to. She lived independently, spoke bluntly, and refused to explain or justify her choices to anyone. She didn't chase approval from studio heads, gossip columnists, or the public, and Hollywood didn't know how to punish someone who genuinely didn't care what they thought. Sophia Loren admired that kind of independence deeply. She recognized that Hepburn's true power came not from rebellion, but from detachment. Studios couldn't shame her because she felt no shame. They couldn't silence her because she had nothing to hide. They couldn't pressure her into conformity because she was psychologically immune to their tactics. Hepburn's indifference was a kind of armor that Hollywood had never encountered before. The industry was built on the manipulation of desire and desire for fame, fear of losing it. But Katharine Hepburn seemed to exist outside that entire system. She took the roles she wanted and turned down the ones she didn't. She disappeared from Hollywood for years at a time and returned whenever she pleased. She lived her life exactly as she chose, and the industry simply had to accept it. Hollywood fears nothing more than someone it cannot control emotionally. And Katharine Hepburn was untouchable. She represented a truth the industry desperately wanted to suppress, that their power was an illusion, and any actress brave enough to see through it could walk away unscathed. Marilyn Monroe. The power behind the image Marilyn Monroe is often remembered as fragile, vulnerable, tragically misunderstood. But Hollywood didn't fear her fragility. It feared the moment she stopped being predictable. It feared the moment she began to understand her own power. Monroe played the role Hollywood assigned her, the blonde bombshell, the sex symbol, the beautiful woman who existed solely for male fantasy. She was adored, desired, photographed, and objectified. And for a while, she accepted it. But then something shifted. Marilyn began questioning her contracts. She started demanding creative control. She formed her own production company at a time when actresses simply didn't do that. She left Hollywood for New York to study method acting with Lee Strasberg, proving she was serious about her craft. She fought for serious, dramatic roles that would showcase her talent, not just her body. She wanted to be seen as an artist, not just an image. Sophia Loren's generation recognized the shift immediately. They watched as Marilyn Monroe, the woman the industry had underestimated and exploited for years, began wielding the very popularity they had given her as a weapon. Her fame gave her leverage. Frightened an industry built on rigid hierarchies and unquestioned authority. Monroe wasn't supposed to be smart. She wasn't supposed to understand the business. She certainly wasn't supposed to challenge the men who controlled her career. But she did all of those things. And when she proved she wasn't just a pretty face, Hollywood realized it had made a dangerous mistake. They didn't fear her vulnerability or her mental health struggles. They feared her awakening. They feared the moment she recognized her own worth. Because a woman, adored by millions, who fully understands her power and refuses to be controlled, is impossible to contain. Marilyn Monroe represented every studio executive's nightmare, a star who could walk away and take her audience with her. Elizabeth Taylor, too famous to silence Elizabeth Taylor, frightened Hollywood because she committed the ultimate transgression. Her private life was scrutinized, criticized, moralized about, and sensationalized in every tabloid and gossip column in America. She married 8 times. She had passionate public affairs. She broke up marriages, defied social conventions, and lived her romantic life as loudly and unapologetically as possible. And yet none of it diminished her star power. If anything, the scandal amplified her influence. The public was fascinated, obsessed even. They might have judged her, but they couldn't look away. And that fascination translated into box office gold. Studios found themselves in an impossible position. They wanted to discipline Elizabeth Taylor, to bring her in line, to make an example of her. But they couldn't afford to. She was too valuable, too bankable, too essential to their bottom line. The usual methods of control threatening to end careers, blacklisting actresses, destroying reputations, didn't work when the actress in question was more powerful than the system trying to punish her. Sophia Loren observed that Elizabeth Taylor represented a dangerous truth that Hollywood desperately wanted to suppress. Fame can outweigh authority. When an actress becomes bigger than the system itself, when her star power eclipses the studio's influence, the entire power structure collapses. Taylor proved that if you were famous enough, popular enough, irreplaceable enough, you could live exactly as you pleased, and the industry would simply have to accept it. She spoke openly about her life, her loves, her mistakes. She refused to apologize for being human, for making choices that others deemed inappropriate, for prioritizing her own happiness over respectability. And Hollywood, which had always relied on shame and fear to keep actresses in line, discovered that shame doesn't work on someone who refuses to feel it. Hollywood didn't fear Elizabeth Taylor's scandals. It feared her immunity to their judgment. It feared her proof that their control was conditional, that their power had limits, that a star bright enough could burn through any attempt to contain her. Jane Fonda, the actress who refused to be silent, Jane Fonda, wasn't feared for her acting talent alone, though she had plenty of it. She was feared because she used her platform in ways Hollywood found deeply threatening. She spoke politically when actresses were expected to stay silent on controversial issues. She protested openly when studios preferred their stars to be apolitical and safe. She challenged Hollywood's comfortable relationship with neutrality and exposed it as the cowardice it was. In an industry that preferred quiet stars and carefully controlled narratives, Jane Fonda broke the illusion that actresses were just pretty decorations with no opinions or convictions. She was arrested at protests. She traveled to Vietnam during the war and spoke against it. Earning the hatred of millions and the nickname Hanoi Jane, she didn't separate her public image from her political beliefs, didn't perform the expected Hollywood neutrality, didn't prioritize her career over her conscience. Sophia Loren understood exactly what Fonda was risking. Speaking up meant isolation from your peers, condemnation from the public, potential blacklisting from studios. It meant sacrificing opportunities, damaging your reputation, making yourself a target. But it also meant power, the power that comes from refusing to be silenced. the power of standing for something larger than yourself. Hollywood feared Jane Fonda because she reminded everyone that silence was a choice, and she refused to make it. She proved that actresses didn't have to play along, didn't have to pretend they had no opinions about war, injustice, or politics. Her very existence challenged the comfortable fiction that entertainers should shut up and act, that their job was to be beautiful and entertaining and nothing more. The fear that surrounded Jane Fonda didn't come from her being wrong. History has vindicated many of her positions. The fear came from her being loud, from her refusal to stay in her lane, from her insistence that being an actress didn't mean surrendering her voice as a citizen. She represented a fundamental threat to the system, proof that Hollywood stars didn't have to remain obedient, decorative, and politically silent to succeed. Sophia Loren. The woman Hollywood couldn't own. Sophia Loren frightened Hollywood by never fully belonging to it. She arrived not as a hopeful starlet desperate for acceptance, but as an international star who carried her Italian culture with absolute pride. She refused to erase her identity, her accent, her values, or her sense of self to fit American expectations, and that refusal made her impossible to control. Hollywood had a template for foreign actresses: soften the accent, adopt American mannerisms, transform yourself into something more palatable to American audiences. But Loren rejected that template entirely. She remained unapologetically Italian. Her speech, her style, her sensibility, her choices. She didn't try to become an American actress who happened to be born in Italy. She remained an Italian actress who sometimes worked in America. This wasn't stubbornness or ego. It was strategy. Sophia Loren understood something crucial. Hollywood couldn't reshape her if she didn't give them permission. She couldn't be owned if she didn't depend on them for validation. By maintaining her identity and her connection to Italian cinema, she negotiated from a position of strength rather than desperation. She later reflected that Hollywood fears women who don't need it, who have other options, other homes, other sources of validation and success. When admiration flows both ways rather than just one direction, when an actress can walk away and return to a thriving career elsewhere, control disappears. The power dynamic shifts. The studio system loses its leverage. Hollywood didn't fear Sophia Loren's talent, her beauty, or her success. It feared her independence. It feared her proof that an actress could thrive without surrendering to the system. That identity didn't have to be sacrificed for fame. That true power came from never needing to belong. Sophia Loren never believed Hollywood feared women for being difficult. She believed it feared them for being free. After a lifetime inside the industry, she understood that beauty was celebrated, but independence was tolerated only when it remained quiet. The women who frightened Hollywood were not rebels without purpose. They were women who knew their value and refused to surrender it. According to Sophia Loren, power doesn't need to shout to be threatening. It simply needs to exist without permission. Hollywood has always remembered these women as icons, but what it truly feared was that they never needed to belong.